were to ask foreigners about what they think of Philippines, we would probably get at least 20% of the respondents answer that Philippines is a slaves, or puppet of big countries. Not because our map shows Philippines looks like a dog, but because we are known to have been colonized by 3 countries, namely Spain, America, and Japan. One of the most misguided notions about the pre-colonial Philippines is the idea that we do not have cultures before Spaniards came to conquer us.
Oh, do you think that's true?
I guess it's not.
Let's try to find out.
Well, we are studying the pre-colonial period and we do have different cultures, beliefs, and practices before the colonization happened. This includes the burial practices here in the Philippines. As we all know, life is marked by 3 stages: birth, marriage, and death. According to Vera Files, a documentary that has been authored by a veteran Filipino journalist, COVID-19 recalls pre-colonial burial practices. With the COVID-19 death in the family, the unthinkable in Philippine life has happened. No wakes, and not even a last look and the last goodbye. Cremation must be done within 12 hours of death. Only the ashes is handed back to the family. Today's cremation is a reminder that thousands of years ago, here in the Philippines, we buried our dead in earthenware jars and other vessels. Caves and rock shelters provided that sacred space for burials. Relatives and the family of the deceased undergo fasting. And to show sorrow, relatives hired professional mourners to chant the good deeds of the dead. Mourning for a dead chieftain or the leader of the tribe was called laraw, while the hired mourners are called maglahi for man and morotal for woman. They were also the chanters and the performers of the ritual for the dead datu.
Saludo, saludo, saludo kami. Saludo, saludo, saludo kami.
Saludo, saludo, saludo kami. Saludo, saludo, saludo.
Just like today, our ancestors also attired dead individuals in their finest clothes called saplot. But the traditional way before a dead body was placed inside the lungon or coffin, a white blanket serving as a shroud was placed over the body, called mummification. Note that the number of blankets depends on the wealth of the person, reaching up to 10 in some instances. But before covering it with saplot, the eyes and mouth were also covered with pounded gold sheets, while more gold pieces would also be placed inside the mouth. While shrouding was in progress, gold pieces and gold jewelry would be tucked here and there in between the blankets. The weapons or tools of the deceased, either male or female, would also be interred with them as a pabaon. Around the area of the mouth, a small size of the saplot was cut, as they believed that the deceased would come back to ask for food. And if this was not done, which is the cutting of saplot around the area of the mouth, a paganito or ritual would have to be made, which would require the preparation of large quantities of food. After several years, the ashes and remains of the body was then placed inside a jar, called manunggol jar, together with the valuable properties of the deceased. The manunggol jar will then be carried on their backs, heading up to the highest possible place of the cave, where it can be placed. closer the jar to the heaven, the better, because they believe that they are helping their ancestors reach the heaven or the kaluwalhatian faster. Also, during the mourning period, they let lights burn all day and night, and fires built around the bereaved home. Others even burned down their house, and the family left to live in a new home. If the person who died violently, like murdered or tortured, the relatives would kill the guilty party and their family to appease their sorrow. During the pre-colonial period, whether their beliefs were animistic, Muslim, Hindu, or for any local gods, the early Filipinos had long believed in a concept of life after death. This belief, which stemmed from indigenous ancestral veneration and was strengthened by strong family and community relations within tribes, prompted the Filipinos to create burial costumes to honor the dead through prayers and rituals. Due to different cultures from various regions of the Philippines, many different burial practices have emerged. For example, the Manobos buried their dead in trees. Manobos burial practices have 4 methods, and these are the methods: tying the dead to a branch, placing the dead into branches, placed on a platform made on the branches, buried inside the tree trunk. Sulod and sagada are the common Manobos burial practices. Sulod is still burying dead body inside the tree, and years past, they remove the bones and transfers the ashes inside a jar, while sagada is hanging the dead by the side of the mountain. The Ifugaos seated the corpse in a chair before it was brought to the cave and buried elsewhere. For the other tribes' burial practices, corpse was embalded with herbs and oils and perfume, then placed in a coffin. Some buried deads under the house or cave of a cliff overlooking the sea. The most common forms of traditional burials are supine pits, earthenware jars, and log coffin, and have been a topic of interest among Philippine archaeologists since the early 20th century. Did you know that early Filipinos believed that tattoo is a passport to another world? That's why our ninuno have lots of tattoos in their body.
Did you know that our Ninuno believed that the sudden death of a man killed by sword, lightning, or crocodile were considered honorable, and his soul went straight to Kaluwalhatian by means of a rainbow?
Did you know that wearing white or black t-shirt during burial has been influenced by the Chinese people?
Did you know that the Vena is not part of our practices during burial? It was just influenced by the American people.
Pre-colonial costumes proves that our ancestors lived in complex society, and perhaps the traditions form the basis for our own premised beliefs. Indeed, human experience is both universal and cultural, thanks to traditions, rituals, and beliefs handed down from our ancestors to our generation.